Hello and welcome dear students. Today we will discuss about maize production, processing and products. In this program, we will learn about the production, various methods of processing and products of maize. Maize or corn is the third most important crop worldwide with a total production of 576 million metric tons in 1997 to 1998. Nearly 41% of the total production is in the United States. Maize is by far the largest component of global coarse grain trade. Most of the maize that is traded is used for feed. Smaller amounts are traded for industrial and food uses. Other major producers include China, Brazil, Mexico, Argentina, Central America and many African countries. Maize is grown well in hot, humid areas of the world and responds to fertilizer and moisture by producing large quantities of grain. However, it does not grow as well in hot, dry areas of the world where sorghum is grown. Sorghum is similar to maize in many respects and can also be used for snack food production. Currently, the United States, Brazil, Mexico, Argentina, India, France, Indonesia, South Africa and Italy produce 79% of the world's maize production. Between 1990 and 2011, the number of millions of maize hectares harvested ranged from 129.1 to 163.9. During the same period, the production of maize in metric tons per hectare increased from 3.7 to 5.1 and total maize production increased from 482 to 832.5 million metric tons. Worldwide, 60 to 70% of maize production is used domestically as livestock feed and the remaining 30 to 40% is used for production of items for human consumption. Industries in need of starch include textile, pharmaceuticals, food and beverages, paper and packaging, manufacturing and chemicals. Japan has negligible maize production and has consistently been the top maize importer in the world. 90% of Japan's maize requirements came from USA and another 8 to 9% from Argentina and Brazil. China and Mexico, though being amongst the top maize producing nations, are also top importers. Maize is processed into a wide variety of products and traditional foods, that is, porridges, roti, tortillas, polenta and many snacks. Utilization of maize for food and industrial products has increased rapidly, using nearly 20% of the annual maize of 225 million metric tons, with the balance going to the annual feed. The largest users are wet millers who produce sweeteners, glucose, starches, starch derivatives, alcohol, oil and other products, with considerable growth recently in sweeteners and alcohol. Now dear students, let's discuss the various types of maize. Flint, dent, flory, sweet or sugary, popcorn, waxy, multicolored and other types of maize are grown throughout the world. The color, size, kernel shape and other attributes varying significantly. The production of yellow maize predominates in the United States, Brazil and China. However, white maize is preferred in Africa, Central America and Northern South America because of its sweeter, more flavor products. Mexican type foods in the United States are increasingly made with white maize. Maize is grown throughout the year in India. It is predominantly a kharif crop with 85% of the area under cultivation in this season. Maize is the third most important cereal crop in India after rice and wheat. It accounts for approximately 9% of total food grain production in the country. Recently, the production of maize has been increasing in India. These areas include white, waxy, high oil, hard endosperm, nutritionally dense and low temperature dried maize. These varieties that have improved properties over commodity maize as in India, maize is considered as a food crop. whereas in developed countries, maize is commercially grown for industrial use. In India, the yield is half of the global average. Constraints for low productivity include the following reasons: climatic conditions resulting in drought or excess water associated with increased pressure of diseases or pests. Cultivation in Kharif is mainly under rain-fed conditions on marginal lands with inadequacy in irrigation. Only about 30% of the area is under SCH. Lack of development of single-cross hybrid technology, which is a key to higher productivity gains like USA, China and other countries. Limited adoption of improved production protection technology. Deficiencies in the production and distribution system of quality seed. Small farm holdings and limited resource availability with farmers. The nutrient composition indicates that among the cereals, maize has the highest fat content. This makes it one of the important cereals for processing. Corn oil is a high-value product, making this crop economically viable for processing. Sorghum utilization in snack foods. Sorghum is certified GMO-free and can be used in alkaline cooked and extruded snacks. It is used alone or in combination with maize for tortillas and tortilla chips in some areas of Honduras, Nicaragua, Guatemala, El Salvador and Mexico. Meal and grits from food sorghum are easily extruded to produce white or light color, bland-tasting products that can easily be colored and flavored. Now, dear students, let's discuss the structure of maize. The maize seed is a single fruit called the kernel. It includes an embryo, endosperm, aleurone and pericarp. The pericarp is a thin outer layer that has a protection role for the endosperm and embryo. Pericarp thickness ranges from 25 to 140 UM among genotypes. Pericarp adheres tightly to the outer surface of the aleurone layer and is thought to impart semi-permeable properties to the corn kernel. All parts of the pericarp are composed of dead cells that are cellulosic tubes. The innermost tube cell layer is a row of longitudinal tubes pressed tightly against the aleurone layer. This layer is covered by a thick and rather compact layer known as the mesocarp, composed of closely packed, empty elongated cells with numerous pits. A waxy cutin layer that retards moisture exchange covers an outer layer of cells, the epidermis. The endosperm usually comprises 82 to 84% of the kernel dry weight and 86 to 89% starch by weight. The outer layer of endosperm or the aleurone layer is a single layer of cells of an entirely different appearance. This layer covers the entire starchy endosperm. The germ is composed of the embryo and the secutellum. The secutellum acts as the nutritive organ for the embryo, and the germ stores nutrients and hormones that are necessary for the initial stage of germination. Now, dear students, let's understand process of maize milling. In many cases, milling is a very simple process involving the use of a simple grinder to create a specific particle size distribution from the bulk raw material. The opposite end of the spectrum is the complex process employed to produce white flour for the baking industry. Industrially milling is through two methods, that is, wet process and dry processing. First, wet processing. The wet milling process employed by starch manufacturers is considerably different from other processes due to large quantity of water required for the process, resulting in the liquid product. The wet milling process consists of the following steps. First, cleaning. Second, soaking. Third, germ separation and germ recovery. Fourth, milling and fiber recovery. And fifth, separation of starch and gluten. First, cleaning. All impurities such as dust, chaff, cobs, stones, insect-infested grain and broken grain and other foreign materials are removed from corn by screening and aspirating. The clean grains are conveyed to the storage bins. Second, steeping or soaking. The major objectives of steeping are soften the kernel for grinding, Separation of germ. Separation of gluten from the starch granules. Remove soluble portion mainly from the germ. Water impregnated with SO2, that is acidylated water with sulfuric acid, is used for steeping. It helps in arresting fermentation during steeping process. The steeping is carried out at 500 degrees Celsius for a period varying from 28 to 48 hours. The steeped corn attains moisture content of about 45%. Germ recovery. The wet and softened corn kernels contain about 45% moisture when conveyed to the degerminating unit. This machine, consisting of a metallic stationary plate with a rotating plate with projecting teeth, is employed only for tearing the soft kernels apart and freeing the germs without grinding them. The pulpy mixture containing germs, husk, starch and gluten, which is passed through hydroclones. The germ, being lighter, is separated from other heavier ingredients by centrifugal force. Only modern starch plant employs hydroclones for germ separation. Milling and fiber recovery. After separation of germ and screening of the coarse particles, the mixture contains starch, gluten and hulls. Mainly, either traditional Burstone mill or modern Entolator impact mills that are used to release the rest of the starch, then generally ground horny endosperm and hull. Material to be ground enters the machine through a spinning rotor and is thrown out with great force against the impactors at the periphery of the rotor and also against a stationary impactors, resulting in considerable reduction in particle size. Here only the starch is readily released with a very little size reduction of hulls. The milled slurry containing the ground starch, gluten and hulls is passed through a series of hexagonal reels where the coarser hulls and fibers are removed. Separation of starch and gluten. In the modern process, the slurry containing starch and gluten is concentrated. Further, the lighter gluten particles are separated from the relatively heavier starch particles by the centrifugal force in high-speed centrifuges. The centrifuging of starch is carried out in two stages. In many modern plants, the second stage of centrifugation is performed by a number of hydroclones type of equipment. The starch obtained from the second stage of separation is filtered and then dried to produce dry starches. Dry processing. Maize is dry milled in two ways: by stone grinding the kernels to produce hominy grits and whole meals rich in bran and germ. Degermination is the later process which produces highly refined grits, meals and flours with longer shelf lives. Fresh whole maize meals have rich flavor because of their high oil and germ content. Some meals are bolted to remove coarse particles of bran and germ. Whole or bolted meals have a shorter shelf life as the oil becomes rancid quickly. Generally, white maize is preferred for production of whole meals. The objective of dry milling is to produce the maximum percentage of clean grits containing minimum fat, fiber and least specks with the maximum percentage of clean germ with maximum oil content and largest particle size. The maize is thoroughly cleaned by combinations of sieving, aspiration, washing in water, electrostatic separation and other methods. All mills carefully examine incoming lots of maize for aflatoxins, fumonisins, grain molds, herbicides and pesticide residues. The clean maize is conditioned to 20 to 23% moisture and placed in a tempering bin for 1 to 3 hours. The objectives of conditioning are to toughen the germ and bran to facilitate subsequent separations. Tempering hydrates the kernel so maximum grits yield with minimum flour. Modifications of tempering conditions are used depending upon maize attributes. Now, dear students, let's understand the production of starch from maize. Corn starch, corn flour or maize starch is the starch derived from the maize grain. The starch is obtained from the endosperm of the maize kernel. Corn starch is a popular food ingredient used in the food, textile, pharmaceuticals and paper industries. The basic unit operations involved in the production of maize starch from raw maize are cleaning. The raw material is cleaned to remove foreign matters. Steeping. Kernels are steeped in large tanks of warm water containing acid and sulfur dioxide. The steeping is for a short period of time. Milling. Softened kernels are wet milled in a pool of water. Settling and decanting. The milled product is allowed to settle under gravity and thereafter the water is decanted to obtain a thick slurry of corn mass. Sieving. The slurry is sieved to remove the husks. Centrifuging. The starch with the slurry less germ and husks is separated from the protein. Dewatering. The starch is dewatered to form starch cake. Granulating. The cake is broken to smaller pieces to increase its surface area to effective drying. Drying. The starch is dried using flash dryer. Milling. The dried corn starch is milled into desirable particle size. Packaging. The starch is packaged appropriately in airtight and moisture impermeable packaging material. Now dear students, let's discuss the uses of maize starch. Most starch is used for industrial purposes. Starch meets the requirements of a range of specialty products. To meet these requirements, three-step wet modification in temperature, pH and additives are done. By applying different reaction conditions and strict process control, specialty products with unique properties are made. These specialty products are named modified starches. They still retain their original granule form and thereby resemble the native starch in appearance, but the modification improves quality in the starch when cooked. The paste may have improved clarity, viscosity, film forming ability, etc. Commercial cornstarch is used in the manufacture of sweeteners, sizing of paper and textile, and as a food thickener and stabilizer. The byproducts are valuable feed ingredients. Being a pure renewable natural polymer starch which has a multitude of applications. Starch finds uses in fast foods, sweets, sausages, tablets, paper, corrugated board, etc. and plays a prominent part in our everyday life. Almost 50% of starch was converted to high fructose syrups. Per capita sweetener consumption is now evenly divided between sucrose and HFS. Each year, an estimated 60 million tons of starch gets extracted from a wide range of cereal, root and tuber crops to be used in a variety of products such as stabilizers in soups, frozen foods, as coating on pills and paper, as adhesives on stamps and plywood, as a stiffening agent in textiles, as raw material for making ethanol and even as binder in concrete. Now dear students, let's understand the various byproducts from maize. The byproducts from maize-based industries find various applications. First, maize, corn, steep liquor. It contains amino acids, proteins and is used by antibiotic drug manufacturers as source of nitrogen for fermentation industry. Also, it is a large source of biogas which is being used as fuel for dryers, boilers, etc. Second, maize gum. The corn oil is produced when oil is expelling from the germs. Corn oil finds application in food and other chemical industries. Maize oil cake obtained after expelling oil is used as cattle and poultry feeds. Third, maize gluten. Maize gluten contains high protein content and used as cattle and poultry feeds. Fourth, maize husk. It contains starch, protein and fat as minor components and mainly consumed as cattle feed. The major use of maize in developed countries is production of alcohol from the glucose produced from maize starch. This has led to the debate whether food crop can be used for alcohol production to be used as an alternate fuel to petrol for running cars. Should it not go for the production of food for the poor people in the developing and poor countries? Dear students, this was all about today's deliberation. Hope you have learned some new exciting things. Thank you for your attention. Have a great day ahead. Goodbye.